Hello, congregation. We know that it has been a little while. I don't even know how many weeks it's been.
Yeah, it's been a while.
We have a new little newborn family member at our house, and life with a newborn, there's a reason they call it the newborn trenches, and things just get shaken up a little bit, but you know what? It's bliss. We love it. So, but we've been gone for a little bit because I don't have the time to edit as much, and anyway, so if you've had a newborn, you totally understand. But we are so glad that you are here with us today. We are going to take a look at Samson, but welcome to the Unveiled podcast. Pastor T, as always, can you pray us in?
Let's go. Loving God, thank you. Thank you for bringing us together again, and thank you for the blessings that have caused us to have to pause. But Lord, we bring this story to you. What can we learn from Samson? What can we digest and think about? And those things that make us go, oh, I wonder why this. So Lord, thank you for this time together. Amen.
Amen. So Pastor T said, so which way are you going to go with this? And I said, I have several different ways, and we'll see which way it goes.
We'll see which way it goes.
But I'm super excited because I got, for Christmas actually, and I haven't had a chance to pull it out and show it on the podcast, but I got a parallel Bible from my in-laws. So it shows NIV, NKJV, NLT, and the Message side by side for every single word in the Bible. It's pretty cool. So let's turn to Samson, though. And Samson is in Judges. It's Judges 13 through 16. We are not going to read the whole thing, but I will give you a little bit of a recap on Samson. Okay, so Samson, when you're a kid and you hear the story of Samson, it's almost like he's a superhero because he's super strong.
Yes, super strong.
Like, I can remember as a kid thinking that he was a really cool guy. But then as an adult, when you read it, he can be pretty dumb sometimes. Arrogant, dumb, prideful, lustful. Anyway, he was not a great judge. So Samson, though, the one really cool thing about Samson is, like Abraham and Sarah, his mom was barren. So she thought. And then the angel of the Lord, which we know is a theophany, it was God himself, came to her and said, hey, you're going to have a kid.
Yep.
You are going to have a son. And actually, don't drink any wine because you are pregnant right now.
Pause.
Yes.
It wasn't just Isaac when the message of the Lord came. There's also John.
John the Baptist? Yes. And they actually, there's another, like, this all kind of ties.
Yes.
Everything in the Bible ties.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
Yes. So, the angel of the Lord comes to the wife's name is, it doesn't ever say her name, actually.
It doesn't say her name.
It doesn't. His dad's name is Manoah. But Manoah's wife, the angel of the Lord comes to Manoah's wife first. And she does not realize that this is God himself. But he does tell her that this child will be raised like a Nazirite. And so I looked up what that meant. Like, what is the code or the law? What's different about Nazirites? So let me find in my mini notes. Nazirite law states
And where is Nazirite law?
What do you mean?
Where can we find it in the Bible?
You tell me, Pastor T.
Numbers chapter 6, verse 1 through 5.
Yes.
Is the vow.
The vow. I couldn't come up with a word. It's not a code. It's not a law. The vow. The Nazirite vow. And so they're not to drink wine or any kind of grape product, so even vinegar. They're not to ingest it. They cannot cut their hair, which we then see later on in Samson as that becomes his demise. And then also they cannot become ritually impure by coming into contact with a corpse, whether it's an animal, a human, even a family member. So that's kind of the big three that we talk about in Samson, at least. So anyway, the angel of the Lord comes to Manoah and his wife and lets them know that they are going to be having a child. And Samson is born, and although Samson has this vow, this Nazirite vow, he goes against it a lot.
Okay. But pause here, because most people, to take the Nazirite vow, they take it on their own. Okay?
Interesting.
God told Samson's mom that this was going to be a Nazirite, because this was going to be important in the future.
Right.
That he was going to be a Nazirite. And to be a Nazirite, mom had to do all of the things while she was growing the baby So she could not do any grape juice, vinegar, nothing. So she started, from the time he was conceived, he was taking this vow.
Right.
On behalf, his mom took his vow for him.
On behalf of him.
Yes.
Yes. And he doesn't take it super seriously in some cases as he grows up.
Yeah.
Poor mom, she was like, I'm going to do this for my son.
Yes.
And one thing that I love about them is they actually consult. So the first time that the angel of the Lord comes to Manoah's wife, he explains everything to her, and she runs to her husband and tells him, typical man is like, I need the proof. Like, what do you mean? Are you sure? And so they ask for him to come back, or Manoah's wife asks for him to come back. He comes back to Manoah's wife. He doesn't go straight to Manoah, and then Manoah's wife has to run in and get Manoah. Hey, he's back. And so one of the things that I love is they actually consult the angel of the Lord to ask, how do we raise this child?
Because they don't know it's an angel of the Lord.
They don't understand that.
They don't understand
They
that.
try to offer him food, and then they realize when the angel of the Lord is not accepting it, who this is.
So then
and he goes up in flames.
Well, they said, then the angel of the Lord said, an offering.
Yes.
And so then they have the flames, and then he goes up in the flames.
And that's when they fall face down and realize who they've just been sitting with. But they actually consult and ask for guidance on how to raise this child, which I think is amazing because as a parent, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's more like, what the heck do you want me to do with this situation? Please help me. I don't know what I'm doing. Please fill in the gaps where my parenting is not enough. And so I think it's really cool that even back in the Old Testament, they still consult and say, teach us how to raise this child. And so, let's see. Let me look at my notes. Like we said, Samson does go against the vow of the Nazarite. Is it the vow of the Nazarite or the Nazarite vow?
It's a Nazarite vow, and it's only for a period. It's supposed to be only for a period of time, for complete dedication to God. And then when the vow time is over, then they have 3 offerings to God. The lamb is the burnt offering, the ewe is the sheep is the sin offering, and then the ram is the peace offering.
Interesting. But they say, when the angel of the Lord comes to Manoah's wife the first time, he tells her, the boy will be God's Nazarite from the moment of birth to the day of his death.
Yes.
So he is supposed to keep these at all times.
Yes. So
and he knows this.
There's not an end in sight.
Right. And he does know this. But he does go against it several times. He goes back to a lion carcass that he has killed and scoops honey from it. Doesn't really say why he does that. Doesn't give a specific reason why. But it's just interesting that they note it in the Bible.
And he tore the lion apart to show his strength.
Right, exactly. His strength. The other thing they say is that he probably was not very muscular, because as we get farther on in the story and start talking about Delilah, they want to know what the secret behind his strength is. So if he was very muscular and huge and looked like Thor or the Hulk, they would know, he's just very strong because of his muscles. But he must not be, because there would be no secret.
So we're going to pause here to have a quiz question for you.
Oh, Lordy. Okay.
There is another famous Philistine.
Okay.
Do you know who the other
Goliath?
famous? Goliath. So Goliath is huge.
Yes.
So the Philistines are used to this giant because they had Goliath.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Okay, and so they're like, wait a minute, this guy he's not big. He's little. Well, where is his strength coming from?
Correct.
Correct.
That is very true. He also then has a group of men that are trying to capture him, and he allows them to tie him up. Then he breaks free from these ropes and kills them with the jawbone of a donkey. Robbie loves that part of the story. I don't know why.
There's 1,000 of them,
yes.
And he killed them with a jawbone of a donkey.
A jawbone of a donkey. So again, that's a corpse. Not supposed to be touching that. And then he's also wanting to marry a Philistine woman, which is not necessarily going against the Nazarite vow, but it was not done. You did not. Back in Deuteronomy, they're talking about the things that you do and don't do, and you do not intermarry with Philistines.
Yeah.
But he is so stuck on this Philistine woman. Anyway, and there's a whole thing between the Philistine woman and the bride and the brother-in-law and best man, all these kinds of different things. Go look into that. But let's move on to Judges chapter 16.
Okay.
He goes down to Gaza, which is a Philistine town. Again, probably shouldn't be there. But he goes down to Gaza and he meets a prostitute named Delilah. He falls in love with her. However, you never see her falling in love with him. She never claims that she's in love with him, but she is in love with money.
Yes.
So Philistines in the town of Gaza come to Delilah knowing that she's close to him and try to get her to deceive Samson to figure out what the secret of his strength is. Now, 3 different times he tells her incorrectly, I guess just to throw her off. Either he was doing it to be secretive because that's just how he was, or he was actually afraid that if they did find out that they would take his strength. Yeah. But either way, he tells her 3 times. And then finally, it says that after nagging for 7 days. Nagging. I like how it uses the word nagging. After nagging, he finally tells her what happens. And then if you think about this here, he tells her, if you were to cut my hair, I would lose all my strength. He believes that all of his strength is in his hair. And that's how the Spirit of God is upon him. Because back then, the Spirit of God couldn't be in more than one person at once, and it never was inside. It was kind of hovered around and was around someone or on somebody. It's very confusing. But as we get into Acts, and actually John is first, but then in Acts, we see that the Spirit can live among people or live inside people in your soul, and it can be in multiple places at once. But at this point, that's not the case. And so he tells Delilah, if you cut my hair, I will lose all my strength. He falls asleep. She calls these Philistine men that she's made this deal with for $35,000 nowadays. $35,000. It's like 5,500 shekels, which would equal $35,000. They come in, they cut his hair. He wakes up, goes to try and destroy them, and realizes that all of his strength is gone. Now, I want to ask you this. Do you think that all of his strength was gone, or are you of the opinion that the Spirit of the Lord has left him at this point? Because obviously it wasn't. Samson could not have killed all those people and defeated all those people by himself. Do you believe that it was true strength, or do you believe that it was the Spirit of the Lord upon him that did it?
Those are great questions. I think personally that the Spirit of the Lord left him but hovered around, because the whole point of Samson's birth was to destroy the Philistines.
Yes. Exactly.
So he was born to destroy the Philistines. So he had to get in.
Right.
So I'm thinking, yeah, he's going to eventually tell.
Right.
Because he needs to be at the inner sanctum.
Exactly.
To destroy. And so I think the Spirit of the Lord is like, okay, we're just going to pretend that the strength is gone.
Yeah.
Because I need him some other place.
Right. Exactly. Well, and interestingly enough, when he's telling Delilah about the real way to remove him of his strength, he calls God Elohim, which is a generic name for God. Meaning that Samson knows about God, he knows of God, but if he really knew God, he would have called him by his personal name, Yahweh. So when he tells Delilah this, he says Elohim. They shave off his hair, he loses his strength, they gouge out his eyes, and they take him prisoner. Sometimes they also make him be a mill grinder, which is like extremely degrading in that time. Especially because he was this great mighty person and had done all these amazing things. And now they've not only captured him, they've gouged out his eyes, and they're having him grind mill. But time passes and his hair starts to grow again. They have him at a big, what would you call it? Like a party almost.
Yeah.
And they are putting him on display, probably taunting him, not doing nice things to him. And he calls out to God because he realizes that A, he's had enough, and B, he realizes, I think the sin of his ways. And he's like, this was never me. This was never my strength. This was always God's vision. And he knows that he's supposed to bring down the Philistines. So he makes a decision and he asks God, and he uses Yahweh. He doesn't say Elohim. He says Yahweh to give him his strength back so that he can defeat the Philistines. In doing so, he knocks down the pillars of this.
Yeah, he asked to be tied.
Yes.
He asked to be tied between two pillars
so that he could rest.
And he pointed out the 2 pillars he wanted to be tied at. So he is tied between these 2 pillars. So, and these pillars are far away from each other. So he's tied, his arms are stretched out.
Right.
Okay, so that is the movement that he was in.
Right.
Between these pillars. That were very important. These pillars were important.
I'm going to let you tell that in just a second.
Okay.
So he asked God, Yahweh, basically, please help me. And he pushes on the pillars. Everything falls, kills all the Philistines as well as himself.
So those pillars is what was keeping up the entire structure.
Right.
So when you think about this and knowing who God is and knowing in the New Testament, this is just me. This is I can't find this anywhere. This is just my brain. Is the cornerstone that the builders rejected. Okay? These pillars were the cornerstone. Because when that falls, everything falls. And so when that pillar, both of them or one of them, you know, what's the header you always think about in a house, like 2-story house, there's always that one thing, that beam that is keeping the top story up. When that came down, everything comes down. So he died along with every Philistine that was in that building.
And I think, again, going back to getting his strength back, theologians argue and some say that he had his strength back because his hair had grown again. And some people, I think I'm with this side, these theologians believe that by calling out to God using his personal name, he's kind of accepting and repenting of the things he knows he's done, and the Spirit of the Lord comes back. Yeah. And that's why he was able to bring this place to pieces, along with all the Philistines and himself. So
he gave his life for others. He gave his life so that the Israelite people could be free.
Right.
And so there's such a juxtaposition between him. And when she told me she wanted to do Samson, and she was talking about his characteristics, and I was like, he's Gaston from
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. I was like, he's very. When I read Samson, I'm like, he's so Gaston, and I was just waiting for him to sing a song or something.
Very arrogant.
Very arrogant, full of himself, and for somebody who's arrogant and full of themselves, who's been raised his whole life with this vow, because you're going to do what God has created you to do, to eyes gorged out, shaggy, probably not being fed well, tied to pillars, and calls out to God, I'm sorry, I get it, I totally get it, and I'm ready.
Right.
I'm ready. And so he pulls, and he dies to save the Israelite people.
Yeah. So it's a good character development, because at first, he's this arrogant, prideful, I can do this on my own kind of guy, to then realizing that no, he can't, and repenting of his sins. And it's very easy to point fingers at Samson and be like, he was so dumb, he was so prideful, and he was. But then to sit back and go, oh man, there are parts of my life where I feel very holier than thou. And man, sometimes we can be humbled from that. Yeah. Because that's ultimately what's happening here. He's very humbled.
He's very humbled because, and that happens to us all the time. God's like going, okay, you want to do it your way, you do it your way. I'm going to be right here. You let me know when you figured out, oh, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. I'm just going to be waiting for you to come back and we can figure this out.
Right. Yesterday in staff meeting, we did this really cool devotional. So we do a devotional at the beginning of staff every single week, and we bounce around who's going to give it. Everett gave it this time, and it was talking about being a Christian and being a Christian. That's kind of what I got about, like being a Christian and being a Christian. How much of it is for show, and how much of it is really getting down in the nitty gritty with other people. And I think a lot of that kind of shows through here too, of like, especially when it goes to the Nazirite vow. He was a Nazirite when he wanted to be. He broke the law when he wanted to be. He broke the vow when he wanted to. And then at the end, he truly becomes someone who knows God.
I talk about it as, are you a spectator or are you a participant? Because when you talk about during Holy Week in the crowds is when I really focus on it, is because it talks about, okay, the crowds that were lining the street and yelling, crucify him, were the same people that were yelling, save us, Hosanna. And so in our faith, are we, and then to get in people's business, are you a pew sitter? Are you a participant?
Right.
Do you come to church on Sunday to sit in the pew because it's what you're supposed to do? But are you engaged in your faith?
Right.
Are you engaged in your church? Are you active in doing the work of the Lord? Are you just going to sit in your pew and watch?
Preach it, sister.
So
he was specifically talking about the fig tree when they go on and one of the things I had never pointed out, or never stuck out to me, was the fact that the fig tree was not withered. It was producing blooms, but there was no fruit. So it was like a noisy, like when they talk about a noisy gong. A Christian who's going to sit in the pew on Sundays and is going to be there, but then during the rest of the week, they forget about their faith.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it was like. And man, it kind of hits home, because I think all of us have those moments where we're like, man, I've kind of gotten away from. Like, I read the Bible every single morning, and lately I have not been making it as much of a priority as I need to be. Could I make an excuse and say it's because I'm waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with the baby and then trying to get him back to sleep? Sure. But I need to carve out that time in the rest of my day. Yeah. And I have not been doing that. And so hearing...
I've lost that with my morning routine. I was like going, okay, we got to get back to this. I mean, this has been in my office. My office here already has enough Bibles. Somehow I got to my office and I kept forgetting to take it back home. And I was like, okay, I need to get this back home so that I can have my stillness in the morning with Jesus.
Right. Anyway, well, we took it one way, we took it another way, we talked about it all.
We're all over the place with Samson.
Yes, I think we do that a lot though, and that's okay.
We do.
We hope that you at least received and took in a little tidbit today.
And if not, just go back into Judges chapter 13
through 16.
And look at it. And if you want to know a little bit about the Nazirite vow, you can go over into Numbers chapter 6 verses 1 through 5 and learn a little bit more about the Nazirite vow.
Perfect.
Oh.
And as always, if you have a verse or a passage or even a character from the Bible that you'd like for us to take a look at, we would love that. It's always nice when people give us things to learn about, because going through this each time sometimes it's hard to find a piece or a character, but when somebody else gives us something, it's fun. It's fun to research it. So if you have a piece of scripture, goodness gracious, that you would like us to take a look at, we would love to do so. But until next time, see you later.
Have a blessed one.